This is a probable cause hearing for a man who's accused of assaulting his girlfriend. They had nowhere to go, and this gentleman was nice enough to let them come live with him. No relation, just kindness of his heart, and he repays him by assaulting his girlfriend, and now he's dragging him into court, and he has to testify. Pretty, pretty nice of him, I thought. But you can see on his face he has zero remorse for what he did, and he's trying to intimidate the people who are testifying against him, and Judge Ricky shuts him down. It's not pretty, it's not fun, it's not crazy, but it's real. This is real. This is what happens in the world every day. This is what people have to deal with. And it really freaking sucks. Enjoy?
Two cases before the court involving Kansas versus Eric Dean Laken. Case numbers 2024 CR 91, 24 CR 90. Amber Norris appearing for the state of Kansas. Joseph Favre's defense counsel. Defendant Laken appearing in the Butler County Detention Facility's Zoom location. These matters come before the court at this time for evidentiary preliminary hearing. I trust your client still wanting a hearing on these two cases, Mr. Favre?
That is correct, Your Honor, yes.
We'll proceed with the 9-1 case first. The state may call their first witness in that case.
Your Honor, the state calls John Moore.
Mr. Moore, if you'd raise your right hand, I'll administer an oath to you at this time. You do solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in the matter now in hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God.
Yes, I do.
Okay, Mr. Moore, I'm going to ask you to really speak up. You can go ahead and put your hand down. I just want to make sure that all participants can hear your answers to the questions that are asked of you.
Okay.
So, Ms. Norris?
Please state your name for the record.
John W. Moore,
And Mr. Moore, where were you living on February 23rd of this year?
Roselia, Kansas.
Okay. And in February, who all lived at that property?
Me, my wife, Jessica, Eric Laken.
Judge, I apologize. Before we proceed further, if we could have the rest of the witnesses sequestered during testimony. I forgot to ask that earlier.
Very well. Any witness that's not testifying needs to be put in a waiting room. Please stay with the meeting, folks. We'll call you in as you are needed as a witness. So, Mandy, if you can put all of the non-testifying witnesses in a waiting room at this time. Now, is there another witness for the state in the car with Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Yes, Your Honor. Holly Moore is with him.
Any objection to her staying in the car with him?
No, Judge.
All right, very well. You may proceed further then, Ms. Norris.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Mr. Moore, you said Jessica. Is that Jessica Howe?
Yes, ma'am.
And on February 23rd, was there some sort of an incident that you ended up having to talk to law enforcement about?
Yes, there was.
And can you explain to the court briefly, what happened on February?
My neighbor and my mailman called me and said Jessica was walking in town. She was bleeding. So I hurried up and went back towards my house, picked her up, and took her back to my house to see what was going on.
So you picked Jessica Howe up basically alongside the road?
No, she was in a pickup with my neighbor getting ready to go to town. So I met her back at my neighbor's house and give her a ride back to my house.
Okay. And what did she look like? What had happened?
She was bleeding on the side of her head, and her eye was all puffy.
Okay. And
Told me
you get back to your place, and then what happens?
she told me that Eric had beat
I
her
would
up.
I'd object to any kind of hearsay at this point, Your Honor.
Your Honor, witnesses present and available to testify.
I think Ms. Howe can testify to what she said herself instead of having him report it, right?
The objection is overruled.
And go ahead, Mr. Moore. What did Miss Howe tell you?
Told me that Eric had beat her up, and she was trying to get away. That's why she was down at my neighbor's house.
Okay, so Eric beat her up and that she was leaving. Okay. And
Yeah.
what else happened after you picked her up and brought her back to your house?
Tried to get her cell phone from Eric. I asked him if I could have her cell phone. He told me it was in the house, and then he told me it was in the camper, and then back in the house, and in the camper. And then he said, screw it. If I can't have a phone, she can't. Took it out of his back pocket and busted it on my corral.
Busted on your what?
My pipe fence.
Okay. So he busted the phone. And what happened after he busted the phone?
He went to town.
Um,
Ow.
what did you do at this point after he broke the phone?
Tell him, John.
Okay, Mr. Laken, do not interrupt.
And if we could have,
I actually, go ahead.
sorry about that. If we could have Mr. Laken put back on mute. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Moore.
I had Jeremy Brown taking the town.
Take Mr. Laken, the defendant, to town.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the sheriff, Gurley, I think it is. I took Jessica in town, and she filled out a report, I believe, didn't she, or on Eric, because he had already filled one out on her.
Okay.
So Gurley finally got her to talk to him.
Okay, so she did make a report to law enforcement about what happened on February 23rd.
Yeah, I believe so. And they came out to my house, and my wife backed up the video, and they took their body camera and copied my video on my security camera.
Okay, so you have security camera footage of the incident on February 23rd?
Yes, yes, we do. I believe the sheriff's department has the same footage.
And were you able to view this footage?
Did I see it? Yes, I did.
Okay. And does it have sound or just video?
No, just video.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Moore. I don't think I have any further questions for you, but Mr. Favre might have some follow-up questions, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Favre, questions for Mr. Moore?
Just a couple of clarifications, Mr. Moore. So you didn't actually see any, I think your testimony was you didn't actually see anything that day between the two of them. What you saw was her bleeding, and then you heard her say things to you. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. And you said you had a video, and it's a video that you turned over to the police?
Yes. The sheriff's
Okay.
department.
Okay. Okay. What's the nature of the relationship between yourself and Mr. Laken?
I've known him since he was a young boy.
Are you related to him?
Nope.
Okay. Why was he living at your place?
Because he was homeless.
Okay.
Asked me to pick him up at the bus depot, and I did.
Okay.
He didn't have nowhere to go, so I took him out to the farm and told him he could stay there as long as he helped me tear out my dining room floor and put a new one back in it.
Okay. All right. No further questions.
Anything further for this witness, Ms. Norris?
No, Your Honor, but he is also subpoenaed on the other case. And then obviously Miss Holly Moore is on the same device, I guess.
Okay, are you calling her as a witness?
In this case, yes, Your Honor.
Okay. If we can shift the camera angle to Holly. Holly Moore?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to administer an oath to you. Raise your right hand, please. You do solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in the matter now in hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God.
I do.
You may question Ms. Moore.
Miss, are you married to John Moore?
I am.
And you live at
Correct.
and you were living at that address on February 23rd of this year?
I was.
And who are the other people that were living at that address at that time?
Eric Laken and Jessica. I didn't know her last name at the time, but Hal. And I think that's all that was living there then.
Okay. And on February 23rd, was there an incident that involved Eric and Jessica that you and John ended up getting involved in?
I was told there was, yes.
I
wasn't home at the time.
Okay. Did you talk to anyone about the incident?
Yes, I talked to the police several times, and my husband, and I don't know, a few of our friends or whatever.
Okay.
They asked me to look back on my security cameras and see if I could see any of it on the video, and I found the incident and called them, and they came out and used their body cams to record it off my recording because I didn't know how to send it to them or whatever.
You didn't know how to get it off of the system.
Right. Right.
Okay. And so you were able to find it and they were able to record it.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh.
Sorry.
That's okay. And did you talk to Miss Howe about this incident specifically?
No, she was reluctant to talk about it. I guess we did try to talk to her about it, but she didn't really want to discuss very much of it.
Okay. And one moment, Your Honor. And Ms. Moore, the defendant, Mr. Laken, and Jessica, Ms. Howe, they lived together somewhere on your property?
They lived in my house.
Okay, they lived in your house. And
Yeah, they were staying in my son's room.
okay, and from what you understood, were they in a dating relationship?
Yes, from what I understood, yes.
Okay, and how long had they been staying there with you?
They came a week or so before. I can't remember if it was before Thanksgiving or Christmas. I think it was a little bit before Christmas, actually.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Moore. I don't think I have any further questions, but Mr. Favre may have some follow-up, so please stay tuned.
Okay.
Mr. Favre, do you have any questions for Holly Moore?
Just the same question I asked your husband. The day of the 23rd, you didn't actually, you didn't actually observe any physical disturbance between the two of them, correct?
Not in person, no.
Thank you.
Very well.
And
Is she going to be needed later?
Mr. Moore and Judge, if I could just have one follow-up question. Mr. Favre just asked you if you saw any of the events, and you said no, not in person. Would you clarify that?
Well, I saw some of what happened on the videotape when I looked up the videotape.
Okay, and what did you see happen on the video?
Well, it definitely looked like an altercation. I mean, between Eric and Jessica. Sometimes it's hard to see on those videos exactly what happened, but it definitely looked like there were some blows thrown, where he threw blows at her, and maybe even she might have even hit him back in some occasions. So I'm not really sure what happened. There wasn't any sound, so you don't know who was saying what to who or whatever. But they were definitely fighting. So.
Okay. And about how long of the video of the incident can you recall?
I'm not sure how long it was. I don't even recall how many minutes it was. I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. And could you tell from what you saw in the video, like, if you were seeing the whole thing?
No, I have no idea if I was seeing. I don't think I was seeing the whole thing. They come out of the house together. I don't know. It just looked like they were fighting, coming in and out of the house and going around the edge of the house. And so I don't know when it started or when it ended.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Moore.
You're
Mr.
welcome.
Favre, anything further along those lines?
I suppose since we're going down that, so you said that they were fighting coming around the house. Does that mean that the view of when they came into camera view, they were already fighting? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, arguing and fighting. I mean, they weren't throwing blows as they were coming into camera view, but you could tell by their body language and stuff that they were arguing or whatever, is what I meant by that.
Gotcha.
So I don't
Now
know
you said that
where it started, where it ended,
Okay. Now you said that you saw him throw blows and you think you saw her throw blows too. Could you go into some detail on that? Like, what's the nature of their physical altercation here that you're seeing on your camera?
It looks like he kneed her in the face or kneed her. He had her by the back of the head, shoving her downward as his leg was coming upward. So I don't know if he actually made contact or what, but it did look like he was kneeing her in the face or the belly or something, and it looked like she might have slapped at him. So I'm not sure if she made contact with him or not. The camera is glitch, so you can't always tell exactly what happened. Sometimes they jump or they don't, show every single step of everything. So it's hard to tell exactly what happened where.
I imagine that if her head is being held down towards his knee, that it's kind of hard for her to slap him. So
That was at different times. I'm sorry, you asked me to explain
oh,
what I
okay.
was
Different.
about.
Okay. So did she slap him first and then he grabbed her, or what happened? Like, did he grab her and then she got up and slapped him, or what happened here?
It looked like she was trying to maybe grab something out of his back pocket, and he turned around and grabbed her.
Gotcha.
That was him grabbing her by the head and kneeing her thing. And then I can't remember if it was right before that or right after that. She was trying to walk away, and then she turned around and then swung at him, like swung her arms around. I don't know if she was just expressing herself or if she was actually trying to swing at him. I don't know.
And you said you don't remember if that's before or after the head grabbing thing. Is that right?
Right. It was right there in that area. It's been a while since I looked at it, so I don't remember exactly when it happened, but.
Gotcha. Okay. No further questions.
All right. Very well. I suppose she's going to be staying with the meeting along with John anyway, but she's not going to be needed for the next case.
And Ms. Moore, no, just Mr. Moore
Okay.
for the next case, and we would call Lieutenant Lawrence as the
Okay.
next witness.
Very well.
Judge, because of the nature of these cases and how they came in, normally I wouldn't ask that the previous witness be re-sequestered, but given that they may be testifying and the way these came in, I'd ask that the Moores be sequestered if that's possible.
If you could put the Moores into a waiting room, Andy. Okay. Mr. Lawrence, if you raise your right hand, please. You do solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in the matter now in hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help.
I do.
Very well. May question, Lieutenant Lawrence, Ms. Norris.
Please state your name and occupation for the record.
Jacob Lawrence. I'm a lieutenant with the Butler County Sheriff's Office.
And how long with the sheriff's office?
I have been in law enforcement since 2011. 2011 to 2014, I was with the Butler County Sheriff's Office, and then I actually went for a small stint and was employed with the Augusta Department of Public Safety as a safety officer, and then in 2017 came back to the Sheriff's Office where I'm still currently employed.
Okay. And did you investigate an incident that happened February 23rd, 2024 of this year involving Eric Laken?
Yes, I did.
Okay, can you explain to the court how that kind of came about and what your involvement was in that matter?
Well, there'd been a prior call that occurred that was being reviewed, and it was discovered that Holly Moore and Johnny Moore reported a domestic disturbance involving Eric Laken and Jessica Howe, which occurred again on Friday, February 23rd. After learning that information, I actually went back out to the Moore's residence to conduct follow-up. I believe it was on the 27th when I went back out there to continue investigating the incident.
Okay. And so at that time, did you make contact? Who did you make contact with on that date?
I made contact with Miss Moore via phone. There was nobody at the residence whenever we arrived out there. So I actually spoke with her over the phone.
Okay. And, um, was that just to confirm the initial report?
Yes.
And the incident itself didn't involve Holly or John Moore.
No, it did not.
So they were reporting it, kind of on, I guess, on Miss Howe's, like at her request, or were they just reporting an incident?
They were just reporting an incident. Like I said, there had been a call, I believe, that Saturday, the 24th. And when reviewing that incident, I learned that they'd actually reported the incident that occurred the night before on the 23rd during that initial call. So I went out there on that Tuesday just to conduct follow-up and to speak with them in person about what they, I guess, somewhat had reported that occurred on Friday, the 23rd.
Okay. So, your continuing investigation. Did you get a copy of video of the incident?
Sorry, what?
Did you get a copy or do a video of the incident?
I did not. No. Corporal Malott went out and met with the Moores and retrieved a copy of some surveillance, but I have not reviewed it or anything else. Corporal Malott did a supplement on that portion of the investigation. I did not retrieve the video or anything like that. No.
Okay. They had
For the
mentioned
most,
that someone had come out there to get it. We just weren't sure who the someone was.
okay.
So did you speak to, you said talk to Miss Moore on the phone. Did you talk to Johnny Moore?
I don't believe I ever spoke with Johnny Moore. I spoke with Miss Moore via phone.
Okay. And did you speak to the suspect, Mr. Laken?
Yes, I did.
And after your discussions with everyone, did you speak to Miss Howe?
No, I did not.
Okay. And you did the affidavit for this case.
Yes,
And
correct.
based on all the information that you gathered, what charges did you request regarding Mr. Laken?
I requested aggravated assault, domestic battery, and also criminal damage to property.
And why did you request those charges?
Throughout the totality of the investigation, including with Sergeant Tharp, who made contact with Miss Howe, it was alleged and through the evidence that Mr. Laken kicked Miss Howe in the head while she was on the ground, also struck her with an unknown object numerous times, and then bit her on the arm.
Just a moment. Mr. Laken, you just consistently are trying to influence witness testimony, apparently, through either positive or negative movements on your part. Your movements aren't going to influence the court's ultimate decision today, so just stop doing it, okay? You may continue with your next question, Ms. Norris.
Objection real quick, or at least a clarification. I'm hearing that Lieutenant Lawrence is testifying about what he has heard from other officers, and they have heard that from Miss Moore. I'm assuming those other officers are not present. I mean, I'm worried we have a hearsay issue here that's almost double hearsay. I don't know that we should be testifying to what other officers are saying to Lieutenant Lawrence.
Your Honor, Sergeant Tharp should probably be in the waiting room by now. He was going to be slightly late. He was signing in. So yes, he will be present.
Okay.
to testify, and it was not Miss Moore, it's what Miss Howe said. That,
Okay. Okay, then no objection.
Very well. Ms. Norris, further questioning?
And Lieutenant Lawrence, you were in the middle of, I think, explaining why it was that you requested the charges that you did. I think you were still in process on the first one. If you would just, I guess, complete your thought.
I apologize. Yes, I requested aggravated assault, or excuse me, aggravated battery, also domestic battery and criminal damage to property. Whenever I interviewed and spoke with Mr. Laken, he did admit and confirm that he was in a disturbance with Miss Howe. He did admit that the disturbance was over lost cigarettes, in which Miss Howe was wanting to walk or leave to go to El Dorado. He did admit that he was trying to keep her from leaving, and even to the point he said he was trying to block her and chest bumping her. I did ask Mr. Laken about if Miss Howe was going to have any injuries from the incident. He did admit that she was going to have a mark above her left eye, which he said that she received during a, in quotation, scuffle they had between each other. And he also admitted to breaking the cell phone. He did confirm that, but he would never admit to kicking Miss Howe in the head. He did claim that she was the aggressor in the incident, and I believe he did have a couple scratches, like on his left elbow area, or excuse me, not elbow, a left cheek area, just small, minute scratches. But I did learn that through my interview specifically with him. And then the next day, as I was stating, Sergeant Tharp met with Miss Howe at the Butler County Jail and confirmed the story provided by the Moores on that Mr. Laken had, while she was on all fours on the ground at the residence, kicked her in the head and then also hit her with an unknown object and then bit her at least twice. And she did have marks consistent with that story and the investigation.
And when you talked to Mr. Laken, did he, I guess, give you a description or that maybe gave you pause regarding the kicking incident?
Yes, I did ask Mr. Laken specifically if there anything else had occurred during the incident. And I specifically said, I believe it was scratching, pushing, or kicking, giving numerous options. And he specifically began, I guess you could say somewhat even counter questioning me, asking me if I was specifically asking him if he had kicked her. And I, during the interview, told him that was kind of odd because that's exactly what I'd been informed had happened. And then he even went farther to say, well, if I was going to kick her in the head, she would have to be on all fours to, and I believe he said, field goal style kicker, which again was what was explained and described throughout the investigation on what had occurred. He never did admit to that, but I did find it very odd that he specifically questioned and somewhat even described what was said to have happened.
Okay. And did you have any further discussions regarding this incident with the defendant, Mr. Laken?
No. Not after that interview. No, I have not.
And did you arrest him after that interview, or?
Yes, I did. At that point, since we had not located Miss Howe yet, he was placed under arrest for DV criminal damage due to him admitting to breaking the phone, which Miss Howe had interest in. So he was booked in on DV criminal damage at that point. And then later that night to the next morning is when Sergeant Tharp made contact with Miss Howe, interviewed her, documented her injuries, got her side of the story directly from her. And then the charges were upgraded to the aggravated battery and domestic battery.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Lieutenant Lawrence. I don't think I have any further questions, but Mr. Favre will probably have some follow-up, okay?
Okay.
Favre, questions for Lieutenant Lawrence?
Yes, Lieutenant. So I want to start with things you observed versus things you didn't observe. So things you did not observe are any injuries on Miss Moore yourself. I'm sorry, Miss Howe yourself, correct?
Correct.
Okay. You did not speak to Miss Howe at any time during the course of this investigation.
No, I did not.
Okay. So this is all stuff you're getting from Corporal, no, not Corporal, Tharp, Detective Tharp, right?
Sergeant Tharp, yes.
Sergeant Tharp, I apologize. Sergeant Tharp. Okay. So your interaction here is you spoke to Holly Moore and you spoke to Mr. Laken. Is that the extent of your personal investigation, your personal knowledge?
I spent over a day attempting to locate Miss Howe and
Mhm.
Mr. Laken, but was unable to. So besides that, personal investigation or personal contact with people, yes.
And when you spoke to Mr. Laken, he said that the argument was over cigarettes, that Howe was the aggressor, that she had punched and scratched him. You did observe some scratch on his face.
Yes.
And is that all accurate?
Yes, there was a scratch, I believe, like I said, on his left cheek, I believe.
Okay. And then he also stated to you that she was trying to go out and get cigarettes. He didn't want her to leave, that they bumped chests. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. And he never admitted to kicking her or anything of that nature, correct?
No, he did not. He admitted to breaking the cell phone. That's the only thing he admitted to in the interview.
Gotcha. Okay. And then sounds like, let's see. He said I'm sorry, I'm a little confused about the black eye testimony. You said you had proposed what injury she may have from their scuffle, and he said that she may have a black eye. Is that what he said?
No, he said that she would not have a black eye, but that she would have, I believe he said, a mark or some scratches above her left eye. We had
a
been
mark or
reported
scratch.
originally that she had a black eye, but
I see.
he denied that she would.
I see. Okay. All right. No further questions for this witness.
Anything further, Ms. Norris?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
All right. Is there any reason why Lieutenant Lawrence can't be excused at this time?
No, Your Honor.
Okay.
No.
Okay, Lieutenant Lawrence, you may stay with the meeting or leave it. If you do decide to stay with it, please go ahead and mute yourself.
All right. Thank you, Your Honor.
Next witness, Ms. Norris?
Your Honor, state would call Sergeant Tharp.
Okay. Sergeant Tharp, you've been called as a witness in this case. I'm going to administer an oath to you at this time.
Okay.
You do solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in the matter now in hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You may question the witness, Ms. Norris.
Please state your name and occupation for the record.
Donald Tharp. I'm a road patrol sergeant for the Butler County Sheriff's Office.
And how long have you been in law enforcement?
Going on 7 years.
Okay, and how long with the Sheriff's Department?
All 7.
Okay. And have you worked in your capacity as a law enforcement officer to investigate an incident that occurred February 23rd, 2024 involving Eric Laken and Jessica Howe?
Correct.
Okay. And were you able to interview Miss Howe?
I was.
When and where did that occur?
I believe it was February 28th at the Butler County Jail.
Okay, and how did that occur?
She had turned herself in on a warrant, and I had been given knowledge that the domestic incident had occurred. So I went out there and made contact with her to investigate what happened.
Okay, and for this incident on February 23rd, were you able to discuss that with her?
Yes, I was.
And you said that you talked to her just a couple days after that. So did you do recordings, take photographs?
So my interaction with her was all captured on my body camera. So there was video recording, and I did take photographs of her injuries that I observed.
Okay, and it can explain what did she tell you that happened, and then what injuries did you find?
So while talking with Miss Howe, she had reported to me that on Friday, February 23rd, there was an altercation that happened between her and Mr. Laken. He had been consuming alcohol throughout the morning and started becoming verbally abusive towards her for what she believed was no apparent reason. And the verbal abuse continued to escalate to where it became physical inside of their bedroom at that location, where Mr. Laken had pushed her down, gotten into a dominant position, proceeded to hit her and bite her. Miss Howe was able to finally get him off and separate herself and walk outside of the residence. Mr. Laken continued to follow her. He cut her off at the roadway and tried to walk her back towards the house. Miss Howe at that point told Mr. Laken that if he was going to treat her like a dog, then she would act like one. She proceeded to get on the ground and imitate a dog, where Mr. Laken had kicked her in the head, causing injuries to her head. At that point, Mr. Laken apologized, said it was an accident, offered to go inside the residence and get her a cigarette. At that point, Miss Howe walked to a neighbor's house to get away from the situation, was able to call Mr. John Moore, who owns the property out there where all this occurred. Mr. Moore had said that he was going to make Mr. Laken leave and offered to go get her and bring her back. At which point there was another verbal altercation where Mr. Laken had retrieved Miss Howe's cell phone when it fell out of her pocket when she had got kicked in the head. He told her that if he couldn't have the phone, then she couldn't have it either, and proceeded to break the telephone. And then he'd gotten a ride into the city limits of El Dorado by Mr. Jeremy Brown.
Okay, and based on the information that she provided, you ended up taking photographs. You said of some injuries. Were the
Correct.
injuries that you saw consistent with the statements that she made about what happened?
Yes, so she had some bruising to I think it was the right temple area of her head. There was also laceration. She had some knots on her head itself. She had bite marks and bruising on her right bicep and upper arm, and all these injuries were consistent with what she had described in the events that occurred.
And Your Honor, move to share screen.
If you could identify what you're going to share, counsel.
It's a photograph for the officer to look at.
Very well. You may do so.
Sergeant Tharp, can you see the photograph?
I can.
And is that do you recognize that photograph?
I do.
And is that a true and accurate depiction of well, I guess first let's start with who is that and what's this of?
That's Miss Howell, and that is injuries that I was trying to capture of her face. The laceration there by her eyebrow, the bruising on her cheek, and near the laceration in the temporal area.
And did you also try to capture the bruising on the arm?
I wasn't intentionally trying to capture the bruising on the arm. I was more focused on the facial, but I believe I took photographs of the arm individually later on to try to incorporate that more clear and concise.
So is this a true and accurate depiction of what Miss Howe looked like when you made contact with her?
Yes.
And our move for, we'll call this State's Exhibit 1, move for omission of States 1.
Any objection from the defense?
No objection.
Then Exhibit 1 will be admitted into evidence.
And did you have any additional conversation with Miss Howe or anyone else regarding this, what happened on the 23rd?
John Moore was there. I believe that was the only additional person I had spoken with in reference to that incident.
Okay. Was there another officer with you when you did this interview with Miss Howe and a little bit with Mr. Moore?
Yes, Lieutenant Gurley was there with me.
Okay. And did Miss Howe explain the nature of their relationship to you?
That they were in a dating relationship and had been for quite some time.
Okay. Thank you, Sergeant Tharp. I don't think I have any further questions for you, but I'm sure Mr. Favre will have some follow-up, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Barbary?
Thank you, Sergeant. So I wanted to clarify a couple issues. So, first of all, you spoke to her on the 28th of February. Is that right?
It was either the 28th or 29th. I know it was a Thursday.
Well,
It had just been right after midnight.
28th or 29th. Okay, so Thursday would have been the 29th. So maybe if it's a Thursday, that's the 29th.
It would have been the 29th, just right after midnight, approximately 30
Okay.
minutes after midnight.
And if I just understand your testimony, Miss Howe told you that Mr. Laken had been drinking. They got into a verbal altercation and then a physical altercation. Is that right?
Correct.
Now, I think you testified that at first they had gotten into an altercation and then she went out to the street. Is that what you said?
They had gotten into an altercation inside of a bedroom in the residence.
Mhm.
She was able to separate herself. She walked outside towards the roadway, and that's when Mr. Laken had cut her off and tried to walk her back up towards the house.
Okay. Did she say that she had been physical at all with him?
She did say that she had gotten physical in defense to try to get him off of her.
At what point was she physical? In the bedroom, on the roadway?
In the bedroom when she was trying to get Mr. Laken off of her.
Okay. And then you said that she voluntarily went on all fours because she said she's not going to treat him like a dog. Is that what I heard you say?
She said that if Mr. Laken was going to continue to treat her like a dog, and that she would act like one, and that she got on all fours to intimidate, and yes, to act like a dog.
She got on all fours to act like a dog. Okay. And at that point, apparently, that's when Mr. Laken kicked her. Is that right?
Right.
Okay. And that was a kick, multiple kicks.
I believe it was just one singular kick.
Okay. And that would be the kick that you think happened to the side of the head, right?
Correct.
Okay. And that's what she told you?
Yes.
Okay. And then he apologized. Is that accurate?
Yes. He apologized, stated it was an accident.
Got it. And then did she, you said after that, I think that she got up, or did they have further altercations after that? Was that it?
So Mr. Laken continued to be apologetic, offered to get her a cigarette from inside the residence, and she accepted that offer. So Mr. Laken walked into the residence to get the cigarette, and that's when Miss Howe left the property to a neighbor.
Gotcha. Okay, so we've heard a lot of different versions of this from different witnesses, but I think I want to just clarify again, and I'm sorry I'm being repetitive. So directly from Miss Howe, she said they had a scuffle in the bedroom. He went out to the street. She left the bedroom. He went out to the street to get her, brought her back. She gets on all fours voluntarily. He then kicks her once, apologizes. He offers to go get cigarettes, and she leaves. Is that your testimony of what happened?
Yes.
Okay. So just to be clear, because we've heard a lot of different things, she never told you that he hit her with an object.
No.
Okay. Or that he bit her.
I did say that. But what happened in the bedroom when he was in a dominant position, he was hitting her, hitting her.
Okay, the biting was in the bedroom.
Correct.
Okay. 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 All right. Okay. And what she told you was she had defended herself, but that's all she said as far as her being physical. Did she say what that defending herself looked like? Was it her hitting? Was it her biting back, scratching? What are we talking about?
Was just trying to shove him off of being on top of her.
Shove. Okay. Okay. No further questions.
Anything further for this witness, Ms. Norris?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
All right. Will Sergeant Tharp be needed for the next case?
Yes, he will.
All right, very well. Does the state have further witnesses to call on this 9-1 matter?
Yes, Your Honor, we'll briefly call Miss Howe. And she's at the jail.
Okay, we could bring her into the meeting then.
Since Sergeant Tharp may be testifying again, I guess we'd ask that he be re-sequestered.
Go ahead and do that, Mandy. We're going to try to get the jail participant on the meeting. There we go. All right. Jessica Howe?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to administer an oath to you at this time. So if you'd raise your right hand. You do solemnly swear that the testimony you are about to give in the matter now in hearing shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help you God.
I do.
All right. You may question the witness, Ms. Norris. I'll caution the witness. I want to make sure that everyone hears you, so please speak up when you answer, okay? All right. You may ask a question, Ms. Norris.
Please state your name for the record.
Jessica Howe.
And Ms. Howe, in February of 2024, where were you living?
At John and Holly Morris.
Okay, out by Rosalia.
Yeah.
And who all lived there at that time?
John, Holly, me, Eric.
Okay, and you say Eric Laken?
Yeah.
And at that time, were you and Eric in a dating relationship?
Yes.
Okay, and did you talk to law enforcement about an incident that happened on February 23rd of this year out at that house at Rosalia?
They, yeah.
Okay. And can you tell the court what you talked to law enforcement about what happened out at the house out by Roselia with Mr.
Okay.
Lake.
Just doing a welfare check on me. Because they that we got into a fight, and I told them I was fine.
And where did you have this talk with law enforcement at?
When I here at the jail, when I turned myself in.
Okay. And did they interview you and take pictures of your of you?
Yeah, I think so.
And what did you tell law enforcement happened? Besides, you said something about a fight or a argument or something.
Yeah, he just kicked me, and then he apologized,
And where did he kick you?
in the face.
And did he I guess hit you, touch you anywhere else?
I don't remember.
Did you end up having marks on more than just your face?
I don't remember.
Did you have bite marks?
I think I might have had one.
And did Mr. Moore take you to the jail?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Howe. I don't have any further questions, but Mr. Favre may have some follow-up, okay?
Favre?
Yes, Judge. First of all, Miss Howe, I notice you're in custody. Why are you in custody?
Objection, Your Honor, not relevant and
I think it
outside the
lends.
scope of direct.
I think it leads to her credibility. I think it's absolutely relevant.
Well, then narrowly tailor your question to address that particular concern, Mr. Favre.
Yes, Judge. So, Miss Howe, are you in custody right now for a pending criminal charge?
From Nebraska.
From Nebraska. Is that a pending criminal charge having to do with theft or perjury or some other dishonest behavior, interference, law enforcement, something like that?
No.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Howe, we've heard a lot of different reports on what happened from many different sources. I'd like to kind of hear your version of this because it seems like you were the only one that was actually there. So, for instance, we heard we have a bit of a telephone game going on. It sounds like the only officer you talked to was Officer Tharp. Is that right?
I don't remember.
Sergeant Tharp. Okay. When you turn yourself in at the jail, 5 days after this alleged incident, a sergeant or an officer came to talk to you, correct?
When I turned myself in, yeah.
Okay. And that sergeant, I believe, is Sergeant Tharp. Does that sound familiar?
I don't remember.
Okay. And he says that you told him that you had an altercation with him in the bedroom wherein he was hitting you and biting you. Is that accurate?
I don't, like I said, I don't remember. I remember he kicked me in the face.
Okay.
I don't
So
remember.
tell us about the kicking in the face part. What happened there?
That was just in the yard.
That was just in the yard. So prior to that,
So
did that occur?
I was gonna go take a walk and go look for the cigarettes that I just lost, and I somehow or another he ended up kicking me in the face, and then he like freaked out and he apologized, and I don't remember. I just took off walking after that.
Okay. So it sounds like you're having some memory issues about this incident.
Yeah.
Okay. So Sergeant Tharp says that you had told him you'd voluntarily got on all fours and said that something to the effect of he's not going to treat you like a dog. Does that sound accurate?
Uh, uh, yeah.
Yeah. And then at that point, is that when you got kicked in the face?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you don't recall any other physical altercations that day with Mr. Laken?
I don't recall what happened.
Well, do you think you had physical altercations, or are you saying you didn't, or you don't remember at all, or they didn't happen?
I don't remember.
You don't remember. So they could have happened, but you just don't remember. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I don't remember.
Okay. The kick. Was it a very hard kick?
I don't remember. I know busted my eye open.
Okay. So it did damage your eye. Okay. All right. I guess no further questions for this witness.
Ms. Norris, anything further for this witness?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Very well. And she's going to be needed for the next case?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And we can put her back in a waiting room then. Does the state have other evidence to present at this hearing?
No, Your Honor, not in this case.
All right. Does the defense intend to present evidence at this hearing?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Court will make a determination. The charge in this case is aggravated battery. Court will view the charging document in this case. It's charged that the defendant knowingly caused bodily harm in a manner in which great bodily harm, disfigurement, or death can be inflicted. The court does find that I think that under the evidence, death is a bit of a reach. However, court does determine that a kick to the face, based on the evidence presented, could cause great bodily harm or disfigurement. Therefore, it's not essentially what was actually done, but what can be inflicted by that type of physical act. Court does find probable cause that the crime of aggravated battery has been committed and that the defendant, Eric Dean Laken, committed it. Also, the court also notes that the evidence supports that this is a domestic violence crime. Defendant is bound over on count one of the information. Court will defer arraignment until the conclusion of today's proceedings. And we'll move on to an evidentiary preliminary hearing in the next case. 24 CR 90. State may call their first witness in that case.
Your Honor, the state calls Sergeant Tharp.
Okay, we could bring Sergeant Tharp back in. Sergeant Tharp?
Yes.
Okay. Sergeant Tharp, the court administered an oath earlier. Do you understand that you're still under oath?
Yes.
The state may begin questioning of this witness.
Please state your name and occupation for the record.
Donald Tharp, Road Patrol Sergeant for the Butler County Sheriff's Office.
And I think we've already covered 7 years with the Sheriff's Department.
Correct.
And did you have opportunity to investigate an offense that was alleged to have occurred December 24th of 2023?
Yes.
Regarding also Mr. Laken and Miss Howe.
Correct.
Okay, can you explain how that all came about?
Okay, so while investigating the first DV that occurred back in February, through that interview, Ms. Howe had brought to my attention that there had been other domestic disturbances between her and Mr. Laken. I was also informed that in November of 2023, they was involved in a domestic dispute in Nebraska, in which Ms. Howe had injured her hand, which required surgery. And then while they were back in the state of Kansas in Butler County at the address where this all occurred back in February. So Christmas Eve 2023, they had gotten into a physical altercation where Mr. Laken had punched Miss Howe. Miss Howe had fallen and re-injured her recently surgically repaired hand, and had to seek medical attention at Susan B. Allen Hospital in El Dorado. And she had to get the hand stitched up again due to the injuries from falling from being punched by Mr. Laken.
Okay, and did you speak to Miss Howe?
Yes, I did speak to Miss Howe.
And when and where did you talk about this December 24 incident?
This was still talked about at the Butler County Jail, on February, I believe it was 28th.
Okay, so you discussed this incident at the same time as you were talking about the February incident that we just had a case on.
Right. This was brought up at the same time.
Okay. And she brought this to your attention?
Yes, while she was explaining what happened in February, John Moore had told her that she needed to tell me what also had happened in the past, and then she had spoke with me about the the Christmas Eve incident.
And this December 24 incident, where did it occur?
Happened on Southeast 20th Street, just outside of the residence on Southeast 20th. We're
Okay.
on the roadway outside of the residence where the other DV occurred on.
Okay, and this is still that address on 20th, right outside of Rosalia,
Correct.
which is still within Butler County.
Yes.
And Ms. Howe explained the nature of her relationship with Mr. Laken at that time and on December 24.
Yes, they were still in a dating relationship at that time.
Okay. And so Ms. Howe noted that she re-injured her hand. Obviously, this is from December 24th. When you saw her in February, were you able to view her hand?
Yes, I was. Looked like she had limited mobility and she wasn't able to flex or close her like middle finger. Like it stayed open basically, and like she didn't have full mobility of her hand. Her middle finger wouldn't close into a fist.
Okay. And what did you understand that issue to come from?
To my understanding was it had primarily occurred in a DV that happened in Nebraska, and then it was re-injured on that DV on Christmas Eve. So this is just a continuation of the injury that happened in Nebraska. When she fell, she re-injured it. When she got punched and fell to the ground.
Okay. And did she receive treatment?
Yes, she went to Susan B. Allen Memorial Hospital in El Dorado to have the hand treated.
And was she able to give you documentation or information from the hospital?
Yes, when I did follow up with her later on Thursday, I believe it was, because I was on night shift. So Thursday, the 29th, I went out there about 10 o'clock p.m. She was able to give me discharge paperwork.
From when she'd visited SBA?
Correct.
And was that from the 24th or the 25th?
Yes. So she actually was seen on the 25th about 2 a.m.
Okay. And discharged the same day, the 25th?
Correct.
And did you speak with anyone besides Miss Howe regarding the incident from December 24?
John Moore. He didn't divulge much information other than an incident had occurred. And then Ms. Howell was able to explain what transpired.
Okay. And did Miss Howe tell you how she got to SBA?
I believe John Moore had given her transportation to SBA.
Okay. And were there any other injuries that you were aware of that came from this December 24 incident?
No, ma'am, just the re-injury to the hand.
Okay. And did you speak to the suspect, the defendant, Mr. Laken, regarding the same?
I did not.
And based on your investigation, what charges did you request regarding the December 24, 2023 incident?
Aggravated battery on domestic violence is what I requested.
And why did you make that request?
Due to the great bodily harm that occurred. She had received medical attention. She had a previous injury that was re-injured. And the way it was explained to me, that with it bleeding profusely and having to go to the hospital, I believe it met that criteria. So that's what I requested.
Thank you, Deputy Tharp. I don't think I have any further questions, but Mr. Favre, I'm sure we'll have some follow-up, okay?
Favre?
Sergeant, just a couple questions, I think. So the bleeding profusely, that was the words used by Miss Howe or somebody else?
Probably just the way that I worded it in my report, but she said that she was bleeding heavily and she wasn't able to get it stopped.
All right, just a moment. Ms. Norris, I need to see that you're still with the meeting. Thank you. You may proceed further, Mr. Favre.
Thank you, Judge. So basically, this is during the same time you're interviewing her about the other incident. Mr. Moore says that she needs to say something about the Christmas Eve altercation. And her statement to you is that she and Eric had another altercation and he punched her and she fell to the ground and re-injured her hand. Is that it?
Yes.
Okay. Did she say anything in depth about the punch itself? Was it any detail on the punch, or was it just a punch?
I couldn't get much detail other than it was just a closed hand punch. It had
Okay.
been a while back, so the details were a little fuzzy to her, I believe.
Okay. No further questions.
Ms. Norris, anything further?
I don't believe so, Your Honor.
I trust Sergeant Tharp can now be released from the meeting.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, Sergeant Tharp, you may leave the meeting at this point, or if you do decide to stay, please mute yourself. Ms. Norris, next witness.
The United States calls John Moore.
You bring John Moore back in.
Okay.
Mr. Moore, do you remember earlier when the court administered an oath to you?
Yes, sir.
Do you understand and acknowledge that you're still under oath?
Yes, sir.
Very well, then, Ms. Norris, you may question Mr. Moore.
Please state your name for the record.
John W. Moore.
And Mr. Moore, wanted to talk to you about an incident on December 24 of 2023.
Okay.
And was there an incident that day between Mr. Laken and Miss Howe?
Yes.
And can you tell the court what happened?
Yes, I got a couple phone calls, one from my neighbor and one from my mailman. I was out riding my Spider, so I headed back to the house, and she was with my neighbor, so I turned around and called her, and she said she was at Gordon Stan's house, so I went to his house, picked her up, went back to my house, took her there because she didn't really want to go back to my house. She didn't want to at all. But I took her there anyways, and to talk to Eric, to get her phone.
No.
He broke
Now,
the phone.
now, Mr. Moore.
Yeah.
We just talked about an incident in February that had to do with the phone. We've already talked about that. I asked you if there was an incident that happened on December 24th of 2023.
Oh, Christmas Eve. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, we need to focus just on the Christmas Eve incident this time. Sorry, I know this is a little confusing with both cases, same day.
Okay, that's okay. Yes, Christmas Eve, he had got into it with her, and I thought he pushed her over a 55-gallon drum because she fell down. And I asked him, I said, Eric, did you just hit her? And he said, no. I flinched and she fell over the drum. It was really cold and kind of raining. She was outside in a pair of shorts, a tank top, and no shoes. And he just kept chasing her around the farm. Everywhere she tried to get away from him, he'd go too.
Okay. When you say he, who do you mean?
Eric Laken.
Okay. And so you said it was really cold and it was Christmas Eve.
Uh-huh.
And
I think it was raining.
okay. And you said you saw him push her?
Yeah, and she fell over a 55-gallon drum. Backwards.
Okay. And then you said he was chasing her all around?
Yeah, she was trying to leave, but he wouldn't let her leave. They ended up about 3 blocks from my house, south of my house in the pasture. She was standing in water, probably over her ankle, trying to get him to leave her alone so she could leave. I ended up, she had a wound on her hand, and during whatever that altercation was, it split that wound back open. So I'm guessing around 4 o'clock in the morning, I took her to the ER in El Dorado.
Okay, so
And
when did the incident happen? Where she fell over where he pushed her over the drum and she's running around shoeless.
About 2 in the morning.
Okay, so this is sometime after midnight.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So in the dark.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so how did they end up? Do you know how they ended up being separated, or how you ended up taking her to the emergency room without him?
No, he went. He was in the car with me, and so was my grandson. My
Okay,
grandson went to keep them from fighting each other as I'm driving her to the ER. He would
okay.
not stay at the house.
So okay, you get to the ER, and do you go in with Miss Howe?
No, she got out of the car and went in, and then it was probably 30 seconds after that, he got out of the car and went in. And they were in there quite a while.
And why did you decide to go to the ER?
She had a bad wound on her hand, her right hand, I believe. And she had to have surgery, have arteries put back together. And when they were hitting each other, it done something and split that wound open. And now, if she goes into court, you'll see that her fingers is straight. Can't bend the bird fingers. Can't. It's always straight now.
Okay, and so but why did you take her to the ER? Because the wound opened up. Was it bleeding?
Yes, it was. Yeah, it is split back open. And it was nasty looking.
Okay, so you take everyone, it sounds like, to the emergency room. Did you stay and take her back, or?
I did stay. Yes, I did. Until they came out. He actually came out first, and then she came out and took them back to my house with my grandson. And I think they just went to bed. Just like it was no big deal, I guess.
And about what time did you probably get back to your house?
Probably around 3 or 4 o'clock
AM or PM?
a.m. Yeah, my wife was pretty mad.
And what was Eric wearing when all of this was going on out on your property?
Dude, I'm not really sure. I think he was dressed. I think Eric was dressed.
So shoes and long sleeves and
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you hear anything that they were saying to one another when this was going on?
Yeah, she was screaming at him that she just wanted to leave her alone. He didn't want her to leave. He kept saying, John, tell her not to leave.
He kept asking you to tell her not to leave too?
Yeah. Yeah. I told her she needed to go back in the house and put some damn clothes on. I'm pretty sure she went to the ER just like she was. I still don't think she had any shoes on. I took her in there.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. I don't think I have any further questions, but Mr. Favre should have some follow-up for you, okay?
Okay.
Mr. Favre?
Okay, Mr. Moore. So I think I want to understand this. This occurred in the early morning hours of December 24th, Christmas Eve. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Christmas morning is when it was.
Technically Christmas morning. Okay, it's December 25.
Uh-huh.
Now you said this was 2 a.m. Obviously, she's awake, Mr. Laken's awake, and you're awake. Is it normal for you guys to be up all night?
Actually, it is normal. They play cards all night.
Huh.
Yeah.
They
The
as
kids
in yourself and Mr. Laken, and who's plays cards all night?
My wife and my granddaughters and some of my grandsons and
Okay.
daughters and their husbands.
Gotcha. So it's early Christmas morning, and you see Miss Laken, and I think you said that it's cold, maybe raining. She's wearing shorts and a t-shirt, but no shoes. Is that right?
Yep, that's right.
Okay. And she's outside at this point when you first see her?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
He is too.
That's odd. It strikes me as odd behavior. Is that normal for her to be out in the cold like that, dressed like that?
No, she's trying to get away from him.
Okay.
He wouldn't leave her alone.
And so he's trying to chase her around. And
Yep,
then you said you saw the push. Is that right?
I did. I was standing 10 feet from him.
Standing 10
And I
feet,
said,
he pushes her.
What's that?
When he's standing there, he pushes her and she falls over a barrel.
Backwards, yes. And I said, Eric, you just push her. And he said, no, I just flinched.
Okay, so but you said you saw the push.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And he says he just flinched. But your testimony is you actually saw physical contact, right?
With his right hand. He pushed her.
Okay. With his right hand. Okay.
Yeah. And then
All
I
right.
asked Eric, you just push her. And he said, no, I just flinched.
Did it look like a hard push?
Hard enough to knock Jessica over backwards over a barrel.
Okay,
The
so I
barrel
guess that's
flying down.
my question is, if you push somebody and they lose balance, they can trip over a barrel as opposed to they're physically forced over a barrel. So are you saying that he physically pushed her over the barrel, or he pushed her and then she lost her balance?
No. He pushed her and she fell backwards over the barrel.
Gotcha. Okay. You said that they were hitting each other and you had to bring your grandson along so they wouldn't hit each other. Is that accurate?
I brought my grandson along because I went down there in my car and she was standing in water by a camper, and he wouldn't let her leave. He kept getting in front of her. She'd walk the other way. She was trying to leave, and he wouldn't let her.
Okay.
Because she wasn't dressed, I think. You know, she just had shorts and a tank top on. Standing in
Gotcha.
water over her ankles and
Mhm.
freezing rain. It was raining, and it was very cold Christmas Eve and Christmas morning.
Gotcha. Okay. No further questions for this witness.
Ms. Norris, anything further for this witness?
No, Your Honor.
I trust they can be released at this time.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Mr. Moore, you and your wife can be released from the meeting at this time. If you do decide to stay with it, please mute yourself, okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
Do you have further evidence to present at this hearing, Ms. Norris?
No, Your Honor.
Does the defense intend to present evidence at this hearing?
I think we'd like to call Miss Howe since she's there.
Okay, if we can have her brought back in. All right.
Miss Howe,
Okay, just a moment. Ms. Howe,
Oh.
Yes,
remember earlier when the court administered an oath to you?
yes,
You understand that you're still under oath?
yes.
Okay. Mr. Favre, you may question the witness.
thank you, Judge. Miss Howe, I'd like to discuss with you an incident that supposedly took place somewhere around Christmas Eve or early Christmas morning of last year, 2023. Do you recall getting into a physical altercation with Mr. Laken at that time?
Yes.
Yes. We have heard two different versions of this altercation. One of them is that he punched you. Another one is he pushed you. In both of these versions, the end result
Your Honor,
was you.
objection. He is leading the witness. He called her. He cannot treat her like he's crossing her.
Fair enough. Miss Howe, will you tell me in your own words what occurred that morning?
That that evening, I'm pretty sure he might have just pushed me, and I fell in the mud. And
Okay.
I ended up going to the emergency room for my hand.
And you went to the emergency room because of what happened to your hand?
Because I had surgery on it in Nebraska, and when I fell, I landed on my hand, and
it? Sorry, go ahead.
I broke the splint thing that it was in, and it just hurt. So I just ended up going to the emergency room.
Okay. Was it a hard push, in your opinion?
I don't remember.
Okay. When he pushed you, did he push you over an object or did he just push you down?
It was we was in the road, like when I fell in the mud.
So you were in the road.
Yeah,
Okay, pushed. And you landed on your hand, and that's why the re-injury occurred. Is that accurate?
yeah.
Okay. Pushed into road. Okay. So your testimony, I guess, is from what I gather from that is that you don't think you fell over an object. You think you fell directly onto the ground.
I did. At one point in time I did trip over an object, but I don't think he touched me then or anything.
Gotcha. So on a separate incident, you had tripped, but for the purposes of the re-injury, that did not happen because.
Not at that moment.
Oh, okay. When the push happened, what was the situation what was happening when the push occurred? What was happening in your guys' relationship?
I think I just want to leave.
You wanted to leave. Okay. And I'm guessing that he did not want you to leave. Is that why you guys were arguing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you wanted to leave. And then were you attempting to leave then?
Mm, I think I was just going to go find John, but I
Okay.
was like, out in the road, and I was in shorts, and it was cold that night. So
Okay. So you were going to go find John, but you went into the street instead.
like, yeah, I just walked around in the road to another part of the land rover to go to the camper where he was.
Okay, so when you were going into the street, it's because John's house was in a different direction. Is that what you're saying? You were heading towards his house?
From his house to the camper.
Okay. And you thought maybe he was in the camper?
Yeah, he was.
Okay. So that's why you were in the street. Okay. And I'm guessing that Mr. Laken was following you towards the camper as well, and that's when you got into the physical altercation?
Yeah.
Okay. And had you been physical with Mr. Laken at that time, or did he just push you?
I think it was just push.
So you're walking, minding your own business, heading towards John, and he pushes you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. 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 And was John there when you got pushed or not there? Do you recall?
No,
You
he
don't
was.
recall, or
He
he
wasn't.
wasn't there?
No.
He wasn't there. Okay. After the injury occurred, what did you do next?
Um. I think it finally. I think I went inside. I think I went back inside and took the wrap off.
Okay. And then at some point in that evening, did you end up at the ER?
Yeah.
How long were you inside before you decided to go to the ER?
Not very long.
Okay.
I don't believe.
Okay. Okay. Um, no further questions for this witness.
Any questions for this witness, Ms. Norris?
Just a couple. Miss, how were you bleeding from your re-injured hand?
Yes, I believe so.
And, did it hurt? I mean,
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
how long had it been since you'd had the surgery in Nebraska?
It was November, November 14th.
Okay, so
I think.
3-4 weeks before you'd had that surgery?
Yeah.
Okay. And so did you still have, you had a splint on it? It was wrapped. Did you still also have stitches?
Yes.
Okay. And so all of that got messed up when you fell?
Yeah.
Okay. And, what had they done to fix your hand? I mean, what were they trying to fix when they did the surgery in Nebraska?
There was there was an artery graft and then something with I don't remember. It's like maybe the ligaments or I don't quite remember.
Okay, so did you falling and did this cause damage to the work that they had already done, the surgery?
So, I mean, the splint thing broke, so I'm guessing, yeah, maybe.
Okay,
They couldn't tell me.
your hand, does it work properly at this point?
No.
What doesn't work right?
I can't bend my finger. Constantly flipping people off.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Miss Howe. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Anything further along those lines, Mr. Favre?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Does the defense intend to present any other evidence at this hearing?
No, Your Honor.
Very well. Court, as it's required to do, does view the evidence in this case in the light most favorable to the prosecution. Court does find that the defendant's application of force to the person of Jessica Howe can, and in fact, in this case, did cause more than trivial harm, and disfigurement did take place. Court therefore finds a probable cause exists that the crime of aggravated battery has been committed, and that the defendant, Eric Dean Laken, committed it. Eric Laken is bound over on count 1 of the information in 24 CR 90 for the crime of aggravated battery. Also, the evidence suggests that this was a domestic violence crime. We will proceed to arraignment. We will start with case number 24 CR 90. Does your client desire the charging document to be read to him, Mr. Favre?
Judge, he would waive formal reading at this time. Enter a not guilty plea.
Very well. Court accepts that not guilty plea. In case number 24 CR 91, does your client desire the charging document to be read to him?
Judge, he would waive formal reading and also enter a not guilty plea.
Court will accept the plea of not guilty to all charges in it that still exist in the 91 case, including the misdemeanor charges. Counsel, I'm going to set these cases for jury trial as alternates to one another. To begin Tuesday, June the 25th. (9:00 a.m.) Court will,
Your Honor, could we have your July date?
July is Elk and Greenwood, counsel. Why? What's wrong with the June date?
I am unavailable for at least 2 days out of that June 25 week for certain. And obviously, if the court still wants to set the pretrial, that's fine. I just want to make the court aware, or go ahead and have the court set another date. I apologize.
Well, I've got a defendant in custody. And I'm trying to be sensitive to that. I do understand, however, I can look for another date. I will suggest jury trial in Butler County then Tuesday, August the 20th.
Yes, Your Honor.
August 20, 9:00 for jury trial. Both cases will be set for pretrial conference in a formal sense the week before.
Could we keep
earlier in the week?
Could we keep it?
Probably.
Yep.
I'm going to set a formal pretrial conference in this case at 10:00 a.m. on Tuesday, August 13. Mr. Favre?
Well, Judge, I was going to suggest maybe if we kept the pretrial in June, We may have a resolution on this case. I don't
Okay,
know that
well,
we need to wait till August.
with all due respect, Mr. Favre, May isn't satisfactory for me, but I do understand what you're asking the court to do. I do want to set this the week before, if it's still on the trial calendar then. Will the August 13th at 10 o'clock time suggested work? Mr. Favre?
August 13th at 10 o'clock should be just fine.
All right, I will set the pretrial conference in this case for August 13, 10 o'clock a.m. That is contemplated to be done by Zoom, and of course, the jury trial, if it goes to the next week, will be in person. Counsel, I also believe, as does Mr. Favre, that an earlier status review date is appropriate in this case. I do note again that Mr. Laken is in custody, and these cases are some that I believe that the prosecution and the defense should confer about possible case resolution. Therefore, I am going to set an earlier date for status conference. Defendant will be required to appear by Zoom, just like today. Mr. Favre, I've got you for a preliminary hearing, it would appear, on Tuesday, June the 18th at 2.
That is, that's correct. Yes.
Are you available at 3?
Yes.
All right. I will set the Laken case to review its status Tuesday, June 18th at 3 o'clock, and highly encourage counsel to confer significantly about these cases between now and that date. June 18, 3 o'clock, pretrial conference and jury trial dates in August as established earlier. This time, Mr. Laken's bond status in each of these two cases remains unchanged.
Judge, would the court entertain a bond motion made at this time for Mr. Laken?
I will not. This court is, counsel, I'm not inclined to modify his bond based on the 2 felony bindovers that have been done today. The bonds are, I think, are set very reasonably. So we'll review this pair of cases together June 18th, 3 o'clock p.m. by Zoom. Anything else at this time, Ms. Norris?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Can I speak to my attorney, please?
We can do that briefly. Mr. Laken, we'll go ahead and leave the Zoom meeting open and let you guys go into a breakout room so that you can have some discussion. But I do want to send my assistant home. She's had a long day, so let's make this relatively short and concise.
All right.
Court will recess the court proceedings at this time. There are 2 cases, both state of Kansas versus Eric Dean Laken. They are case numbers 2024 CR 90, 2024 CR 91. Eric Laken appears from the Butler County Detention Center Zoom location. Joseph Favre appears as defense counsel. Amber Norris appears on behalf of the state of Kansas. This matter comes before the court at this time for further proceedings. Are there any announcements to be made at this time, Mr. Favre?
There are, Your Honor. I've met with Ms. Norris and I've met with Mr. Laken, and at this time, we have a plea agreement that we've reached. Mr. Laken will be pleading no contest to the sole count in 24 CR 90. State has agreed to dismiss 24 CR 91 in its entirety, and sentencing will just be mid-box and follow the presumption.
Very well. I trust that Mr. Favre has announced consistently with your understanding as to how these cases would be handled, Ms. Norris?
Yes, Your Honor, that is accurate.
Very well. Mr. Laken, importantly, you've been present when your attorney made an announcement on your behalf that your 2 cases that were before the court would be resolved by you entering a no contest plea and accepting conviction in count 1 of the 24 CR 90 case. This would be a charge of aggravated battery, a level 7 person felony. Is that indeed your intention to enter a no contest plea to that count?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Mr. Laken, I've got a number of questions I need to ask you regarding the taking of a plea of no contest. If there's any question asked of you that you do not fully understand, I will give you the opportunity to confer privately with your attorney, Mr. Favre, at any point. Just let the court know if you need that time to get some further advice, okay? I
Yes,
didn't
sir.
hear you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Would you start off by stating your full legal name for the record?
My name is Eric Dean Laken.
How old are you right now?
I'm 37 years old,
What's the highest level of formal education that you've attained?
11th grade.
Do you believe you're going to have difficulty understanding any of the legal concepts that we're going to be discussing in court here this afternoon?
Absolutely not.
Have you ever been adjudged to be mentally ill?
No, sir.
Are you currently under the influence of alcohol or any drug?
No, sir.
Are you currently supposed to be taking any type of prescription medication for mental health?
I do for sleep and depression.
Okay, does that do anything to impair your mental state?
It actually helps my mental state.
So you believe your mind is clear and that you have a full understanding of what's going on in court here this afternoon?
Yes, sir.
Did you receive a copy of the charging document in this 24 CR 90 case?
I had to ask for it about 2.5 months in, and I never got no paperwork or nothing. I didn't even know what I was being booked in here on. And so I had to ask for the paperwork when I was down in booking, signing for an OR bond for the city. I was like, so by the way, can I get my my complaint? And well, actually, I seen the complaints, and I was like, can I get copies of those? And that's when I took them back and read them and was fully aware of what was going on.
Okay. Do you understand the nature of the charge of aggravated battery?
Oh yeah, I've been in law library.
Okay. You understand that when you enter a no contest plea, you are not necessarily admitting that you did that act, but you're also not contesting that you be convicted just the same. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
You also understand that when you enter a plea of no contest, you give up any legal defenses that you might have had to that charge.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Are you aware that in a trial, the state must present evidence against you in open court, that any witnesses must testify in open court in your presence, that you have the right to cross-examine witnesses at your trial and present evidence on your own behalf and subpoena your own witnesses to court?
Yes, sir.
You also understand that at such a trial, you would have a privilege against self-incrimination, which means that you could testify in your case if you wanted to at your choice, but no one could force you or compel you to testify against yourself if you didn't want to. Do you understand that, Mr. Laken?
Yes, sir.
You understand that when you enter a plea of no contest, you give up these valuable trial rights that the court has described.
Yes, sir.
You also understand that you have a right to a trial by jury, and that before you could be found guilty, that jury would have to be satisfied as to your guilt beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yes, sir.
You understand that when you enter a no contest plea, you give up your right to a trial by jury and the requirement that you be found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Laken, do you understand that you have a right to appeal a guilty verdict if you have a trial?
Yes, sir.
Do you further understand that you may appeal your sentence after entering a plea of no contest, but generally you may not appeal your judgment of conviction after you enter such a plea?
I'm not sure what all that means, but sure, yes.
Okay, well, let's go over it a little bit more. You understand that even though you're entering a no contest plea, that you could appeal your sentence later?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, but you're not going to be able to appeal the fact that you've accepted conviction. You understand that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you need any further clarification on that?
No, sir.
Okay. Now, Mr. Laken, are you aware of the possible penalties that could be imposed as a result of this no contest plea that you're attempting to make?
Not really.
Let's go over those. This would be a level 7 felony on the non-drug offense grid under the Kansas Sentencing Guidelines Act. In the most favorable criminal history category of I, that's someone with virtually no record at all. You could receive as little as an 11-month sentence. However, in the worst criminal history category of A, which means 3 or more person felonies on your record already, you could receive up to a 34-month prison sentence. So the sentencing range is on level 7, 11 to 34 months in prison. As you sit today, Mr. Laken, we do not know with certainty what your criminal history is. You better than any other participant really should know what your own criminal record looks like. But that will be researched by the Court Services Department. And based on the outcome of their research as of the date of sentencing, that determines where you fall along that level 7 line, and then you'll be sentenced accordingly. Do you understand that, Mr. Laken?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Laken, I don't know, again, what your criminal history is, but if you have 2 or more person felonies on your record already, you are presumptive prison here. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
All right. Do you also understand that you could receive up to a $100,000 fine for this offense?
I did not know that, but I'm aware now.
All right. Are you also aware that you could be assessed and be required to pay court costs, certain fees, including reimbursement of legal fees and expenses, and restitution to victims, if any are owed, as part of
Yes.
your sentencing orders?
Yes, sir.
You also understand that as a direct consequence of this plea, you will be sentenced to an extended period of reporting probation, reporting parole, or post-release supervision, which is your state parole time that you would do after you get out of prison, as deemed appropriate by the court at time of sentencing.
Yes, sir.
You also understand that both probationary and post-release supervision periods generally start at 12 months in duration, but can run up to 60 months under some circumstances. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
You also understand that the Kansas Sentencing Guidelines Act is an entire book of sentencing rules and laws. Do you understand, Mr. Laken, that if any special sentencing rules apply to you and your situation, it could affect your eligibility for probation or otherwise affect your sentence? Do you understand that, Mr. Laken?
I was wondering what the special sentencing rules were that was on my complaint paperwork. I just didn't
All right.
fully understand those.
Let me see if I can address that. Counsel, and I'm addressing both attorneys. Are either one of you currently aware of the possible application of a special sentencing rule in Mr. Laken's case? Mr. Favre?
Judge, I have made inquiry with Mr. Laken. I don't believe there's going to be any special rule that will apply in his case.
Okay. Ms. Norris, the prosecuting attorney, are you aware of a possible application of a special rule?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Laken, I think the attorneys in good faith have represented to the court that they're not aware that any of these legal special rules apply to your situation. You understand
Okay.
that?
Yes, sir.
That doesn't mean that there isn't one that's going to be researched and found out by the investigation. You understand that there's a possibility. Okay. All right. Now, did you have an opportunity to discuss matters like that with your attorney before proceeding here today?
Yeah, actually, we did.
Okay. Are you satisfied with the services and advice given to you by Mr. Favre?
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, this no contest plea that you're attempting to make, Mr. Laken, has it been based upon any threat or promises as to what this court will do in regards to your sentence or any other type of threat or promise?
No, sir.
Mr. Laken, you understand that if there are any plea deals between your counsel and the county attorney's office regarding sentencing recommendations, that this court is not bound by any agreements made. The court may and shall consider them as recommendations, but is not bound by them. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let me ask you, Mr. Laken, how do you formally plead to the charge of count 1 in the 90 case, aggravated battery, a level 7 felony?
I guess guilty.
Okay. Your attorney had represented, and I've proceeded as if you're going to enter a no contest plea.
Oh, no contest. Yeah.
All right. Ms. Norris, I'm going to ask you for a factual basis then. What would the state's evidence show if it went to trial?
Your Honor, you may recall that the court heard this preliminary hearing on May 21st, but this event occurred December 24th of 2023 at El Dorado, Butler County, Kansas. Oh, I'm sorry, Your Honor, that's actually Rosalia, not El Dorado, but still within Butler County. And on that date, the defendant was chasing Miss Howe, the named victim, Jessica Howe, around the yard in the rain and did punch her, causing her to fall to the ground. She had a splint on her hand from a previous surgery from an incident that occurred in November, I believe in Nebraska. And this caused the splint on her hand to break and for her to re-injure her hand, which she cannot close her hand fully because of this incident. And
So this re-injury, if this matter went to trial, would the state's evidence would show that she has either been disfigured or suffered great bodily harm as a result of this incident?
yes, Your Honor, that is correct.
Understood. Mr. Laken, I know that you may have some retort to some of that. However, when you enter a no contest plea, you don't have any right to make a factual statement. This is something that the state provides the court with, and essentially you just have to accept it. So, Mr. Laken, do you now freely, knowingly, and voluntarily enter a plea of no contest and accept conviction for level 7 aggravated battery?
I guess so, yeah.
Okay, well, I guess so, yeah, is a little bit less than a
I'd like to
clear
speak
and-
on it because, but I can't.
I'll hear what you have to say at sentencing, Mr. Laken,
right.
because it will matter then. Are you satisfied with that, Mr. Laken?
Yes.
Okay, are you sure?
Not really, but I'm gonna have to be. I mean,
Okay.
Well, look, Eric, if you want to have a breakout to talk about it, I'm sure we could do that if that's where you're at.
yeah, I think we need to.
All right, I'm gonna recess briefly, and I'm gonna have Mr. Favre, Mr. Laken placed into a breakout room so that they can have a private conversation, and then we'll resume after that. If you can, Manny, just go ahead and pause recording and. Following a brief recess to allow for attorney-client conferencing, we resume in the Eric Laken matter. Ms. Norris, Mr. Favre, Mr. Laken appearing as before. Following this breakout session with your attorney, Mr. Laken, we had gotten to the point whether the court wanted to determine if it should accept your plea. Are you asking the court to accept your no contest plea at this time?
Yes, sir.
And you feel like whatever concern you had earlier has now been satisfied after
Yes, sir.
talking to your attorney?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The court will accept the no contest plea made by Eric Laken and finds that that plea is made voluntarily. Mr. Laken has an understanding of the nature of his charge and the consequences of his plea, and a factual basis for the plea does exist. Court finds the defendant guilty and adjudges him therefore convicted of the crime of aggravated battery, a level 7 person felony. All other charges that might be pending in the case in the 9-1 case are dismissed pursuant to plea agreement. Court does order a pre-sentence report be prepared to determine Mr. Laken's criminal history, and the court will set an appropriate date for sentencing. Mr. Laken, I'm going to order you to cooperate with any assessments that they want you to do for the pre-sentence investigation process. There could be a risk needs assessment you're going to be asked to complete. You'll need to cooperate with that. Also, if they happen to ask you for a substance abuse evaluation and arrange for that, you'll need to make sure that it gets scheduled and completed prior to the sentencing date, okay?
What if I'm incarcerated?
They'll take care of it while you're incarcerated. They'll bring the services to you if necessary.
Right on. Thank you.
Yeah, that wouldn't hardly be fair if you couldn't do it because you were locked up, Mr. Laken.
Yes, sir.
It's a good question. Favre, Friday, August 16. And I'd be looking at 1:15 PM.
That works for me.
That's later than the last one was.
Court will set the Laken sentencing for Friday, August 16, 1:15 PM. Mr. Laken, if you're not in the jail at that time, you're going to need to make sure that you appear at the Butler County Judicial Center, in other words, where we have court, in El Dorado for the sentencing proceeding, no other location. Okay?
Yes,
Why
sir.
is Mr. Laken still in custody, Mr. Favre?
So, Judge, she has a bond in this case, 2,500 cash or surety, and he has a bond in his 24 CR 91 case. I think it's 5,000. That case would obviously be dismissed when the state files their motion to dismiss that case. Their journal entry of dismissal. But this case, we would like to request the court consider modifying his $2,500 bond. We'll note that he is probably going to be presumptive probation on this case, and I believe he is a local resident of the community.
Where would you live if you were to get out of jail, Mr. Laken?
722 North Washington, sir.
Do you know that you still have that place?
Yes, I do. That's where I was at before, prior to being incarcerated.
Who owns the place?
It's my friend David. David
Okay, and
Limbaugh.
you know okay.
Yeah. It's my best
All right.
friend of 30 years. It's on the same
What's the
block. that I
state's
grew up on.
What's the state's position here, Ms. Norris?
Your Honor, I do believe that the bond is for this type of charge and what's been going on, the bond seems fairly appropriate. It's 2,500 cash or surety with GPS on Scram. I would note for the court that David Linville is known to the court, so I'm not sure that he's the most appropriate place for Mr. Laken to stay as far as interacting with those that are having contact with law enforcement and or on supervision, etc. But Your Honor, I think that the bond is appropriate.
I've had
Thank
no
you. I appreciate
contact
your
with the
input.
victim or nothing.
All right, Mr. Laken, my next question for you is, do you have any type of work that you could go back to?
Yeah, actually I had a job lined up before I came in here. So I was staying with the Moores because we came back from Nebraska and and it was Christmas time. And so I remodeled their dining room floor and their bathroom for them. And then all this stuff happened. And so I already had a job lined up prior to coming in here, but I had no idea that I was even wanted. So all this
Okay.
just came overnight. So
Mr. Laken, how long have you been in jail on all of this stuff?
it's been 4 months.
You ready to get out?
I am, sir. I've had no contact with the victim or nothing.
That would obviously be a prerequisite here, Mr. Laken.
Yes, sir.
You cannot have any contact or communication with the victim in this case.
It's got
go
easier.
out.
It's got easier over time of dealing with being away from her. So like I was already telling her before we got into this fight that we was at our tail end in the relationship anyways, because we've had more bad times than good times. So
Okay. What bond are you suggesting here, Mr. Favre?
Well, Judge, we were asking for a $2,500 OR bond at this time. I think Mr. Laken's accurate in his statement about not having contact, but if the court would feel more comfortable, we'd be okay with the GPS requirement.
Well, I don't know how he's going to afford that when he hasn't been working.
That's the hard part. He's been in custody for 4 months.
I was on it for 5 months last time and I had no violations and I had it paid and everything. The minimum's $3 a day. And like I said, I have work lined up as soon as I get out. I can go back to what I was doing. Please.
Mr. Laken, I'm going to take a chance on you.
Yes.
You've been locked up for 4 months. If there was a lesson to be learned by long-term incarceration, I sure hope you've learned it by now.
Absolutely have.
You brought up to me that you weren't going to have contact with the victim here. That counts for something right there, Mr. Laken. You've got a place to stay in El Dorado. Look, if you've got a stable place with Mr. Linville, just make that work.
Awesome.
I'm going to restrict your location to Butler County, however. Any business you've got to do, any work you're going to do needs to be done in Butler County for now.
Yes, sir.
Okay? That's a condition of your OR bond that I'm going to grant you in the amount of $2,500. There just can't be any mistakes made on this bond between now and sentencing, Mr. Laken.
I understand that.
And what I'm going to need you to do is that on Monday, presuming you get out today, I mean, I don't know if you got any other holds. I hope you don't. You're going to need to contact the Court Services Department in Butler County. I can give the number. Maybe the officer can write it down for you.
Is it out there on Central Street?
Yeah. Well, are you talking about community corrections?
No, he's talking about corrections. It's in the courthouse, Eric.
Okay. I know GPS
Right.
was out there.
First floor of the Judicial Center.
Okay. All right.
So you can report there in person on Thursday. It'll be on Thursday that you'll be doing it. So they're going to be closed tomorrow. Or you can call them at 322-4153. And then follow their direction, because you may have assessments to do like we talked about. If you're going to be out in the community, you need to make sure those get done.
Absolutely. Did you
Okay.
write the number down for me? All right.
And Mr. Laken, you will stay out of trouble, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You have every incentive to stay out of trouble, Mr. Laken, because your sentencing is coming up here in 2 months. Mr. Favre thinks you're going to be presumptive probation. I just don't want you to come along and do anything to mess the plan up here.
Absolutely. I
All
appreciate
right,
it.
Mr. Laken. And then you need to make sure you appear at the Judicial Center for court on the date that we set. Do you remember that sentencing date and time, Mr. Laken?
August 16th at 1:15.
My gosh, I think you got it right. So you'll want to make sure you get that down on any scheduling calendar you utilize on a phone or otherwise, so that date doesn't slip by. Okay?
Very good.
Any questions about any of that, Mr. Laken?
No, sir.
If you happen to find yourself in the same place as the victim in this case, you need to get out of there as soon as possible so that there's no, impression there that you're trying to violate this bond restriction. Okay?
Absolutely.
Because the restriction's not on her, it's on you. So,
Yeah.
all right. It's a small town. You never know what's
Right.
going to happen, Mr. Laken.
Tell you the truth, she just tried to visit me, but she didn't show up.
Okay. Well, for now, you can't visit with her.
I don't want to visit with her.
Okay?
Yes, sir.
If she wants to have contact with you, she really needs to go through the prosecutor's office and speak with them about what her position might be.
Right.
So I can have that information available to me at sentencing. But you can't communicate with her, so,
Nah, I ain't trying to.
all right.
Thank you.
Okay. Don't let yourself down, Mr. Laken. Okay?
Yep.
All right, Mr. Favre, anything else?
Not at this time, Your Honor.
Ms. Norris, anything further?
Your Honor, just to clarify regarding the bond, are you ordering that he live at the address on North Washington, or just that he stay in Butler County as far
He has
as?
to live in El Dorado.
Okay.
And he can't leave Butler County for any reason. I just hope that you have that place available to you when you get out, Mr. Laken.
I do.
Okay.
Mr. Favre, you done a wonderful job.
I'm sure he appreciates you saying that, Mr. Laken.
Thank you.
We got more business to conduct
All
in
right.
August. We'll see you
Yes, sir.
then.
All right.
If there's nothing further, then the Eric Dean Laken matter will be in recess. Ended for all.